Welcome back to Co-op Radio 102.7 FM CFRO. This is Hidden from History, archived on www.hiddenfromhistory.org. I am the guest host today. My name is Reginald Angus Argue. We have as our guest right now, Splitting the Sky, is an activist struggling for justice for the indigenous people of America. He was listed by the former UN Ambassador Andrew Young of the Carter administration as the #1 political prisoner in USA in 1975. Hello?
Hello.
Well, thank you so much for agreeing to come on. And before we begin our questioning, I'd just like to say that there's some friends of mine from We Are Change who are really happy that you're able to come on our show.
Well, I'm really glad to be on your show there, Reg. I've listened to your show quite a bit, a few times, and I really found you to be really in-depth about all the topics you cover, especially around the inside jobs relative to 9/11.
Yeah, I totally believe that 9/11 was an inside job, and there's no way that the towers, when people start talking about the fact when the metal, it melts at 2,500, and yet it only reached about 1,200 degrees, and there's no way that the towers could have basically fallen down the way that they're talking about. But you know, you were at the Calgary protest when the war criminal Bush came to town. And you sent me a link on it, and what happened is I saw that the city police force in the link, and they have all these cameras, they have snipers on the roofs. It was nothing more than it looked like basically they're Vietnam, what it looked like, but yet this is Canada. And at the same time, I can remember Calgary when I was in the military from 88 to 91 when I was in Calgary, and then later from 97 to 2001 when my wife and I lived in Calgary afterwards. And I can remember how the poor are being treated there, mistreated. I remember how the First Nations get mistreated. And it's almost like they have the attitude in Calgary that if you don't agree with the way that they talk, if you don't agree with the way they walk, then what happens is you're not welcome. And when you're not welcome, they'll push you right out. And, I basically, speaking from a personal standpoint, death threat, jail threats, hitting a sidewalk, car store in front of an old house, that's happened to myself, all because of what I wrote in a novel, that they didn't like the rising of the Fourth Reich that I wrote about, that tied them into it too. But, with that said, can you talk about how the City of Calgary Police Force, how they treated you when you were arrested, being a brave individual, standing up for the people of Canada, which all of us should be doing, and trying to do a citizen's arrest against this war criminal, and then after the fact, when you were in jail?
Yes. Well, basically, I'll start out by telling you the whole thing of what happened here, and then I'll probably come back. One of the very first things that happened is that a couple months up the road, I had, a couple months back, I read a letter that was put out by the Lawyers Against the War, and predominantly, it was signed by Gail Davidson of LAW, and I've read a lot of her positions on war crimes and trying to keep Bush and others from the Bush administrations from coming into Canada, and if they did in fact get into Canada, that they should be arrested as war criminals. And there was a position that they put out just prior to Bush coming in that's really inspired me. So if you indulge me for a second, I'll read that position, because this position really motivated me to go to Calgary, Alberta, to arrest Bush for war crimes. In the event that the RCMP were derelict in their duty, which of course they were. But it says the LAW says Bush should be barred from Canada or prosecuted. From Lawyers Against the War, please participate in the important initiative. Law contact information is below. Attention, LAW members. George W. Bush, former President of the United States of America, U.S., and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, is reported to be coming to Calgary, Alberta on March 17, 2009 to speak at a private function. Evidence of Bush's involvement in torture and other war crimes and crimes against humanity has triggered Canada's legal duty to bar Bush from entering Canada, and if he enters, to prosecute him for torture. LAW has advised the Prime Minister of Canada, the Attorney General, and the Ministers of Immigration, Public Safety, and Foreign Affairs that George W. Bush is inadmissible to Canada under the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act. Section 35(1)A states that a foreign national is inadmissible on grounds of violating human or international rights or for committing an act outside of Canada that constitutes an offense referred to in sections 4 to 7 of the Crimes Against Humanity and War Crimes Act. Also inadmissible, Section 31(5)(b) are persons who are or were senior officials in the service of a government that, in the opinion of the minister, engages or has engaged in gross human rights violations. Under Sections 4 to 7, the Crimes Against Humanity and War Crimes Act, crimes against humanity includes murder, enforced disappearance, deportation, imprisonment, torture, imprisonment, or other severe deprivation of physical liberty in violation of fundamental rules of international law committed against any civilian population or any identifiable group. War crime includes willful killing, torture, and inhumane treatment, unlawful confinement, willfully depriving a prisoner of war or other protected person of fair trial rights, intentionally launching that the attack will cause incidental loss of life or injury to civilians or damage to civilian objects or widespread long-term and severe damage to the natural environment, which would be clearly excessive in relationship to the concrete and direct overall military advantage anticipated. If there are reasonable grounds to believe a person has been complicit in any of these crimes, entry to Canada must be denied. The Supreme Court of Canada says reasonable grounds are something more than suspicion, but less than proof of the balance of probabilities. Okay, so having read that it's a known fact. I had contacted my lawyer from one of my lawyers from the Attica days, and had asked him, Ramsey Clark, the former U.S. Attorney General of the United States, and I had asked Ramsey to write a solidarity statement because by this time I had committed myself to going to Calgary to protest Bush coming into this country, and if I couldn't get the RCMP to arrest him, after 2 attempts, on a third attempt, I was going to break the line and go through and arrest him myself. And the only thing I had on my person was a plastic bag full of legal documents to serve him there and demand that one of the local authorities right there in that hall at that luncheon, with 1,500 people paying $400 to listen to what this knucklehead had to say, whatever it was that he had to say, but to arrest him on the spot for war crimes. Now, I wrote Ramsey, and there's a section of a solidarity letter he wrote back to us. And he quotes here, he says, "We dare not blink at the magnitude, diversity, and pervasive impact of the known crimes committed by the Bush administration. Wars of aggression in Afghanistan and Iraq, the supreme international crime, have killed hundreds of thousands outright, wounded, sickened, and malnourished many more than they have killed, and sent millions as refugees to neighboring nations, while rendering homeless millions more, indiscriminate killing of civilians, summary execution, arbitrary seizure of people and property, secret unlimited detention, and torture have been authorized, widely practiced and both defended and denied publicly. President Bush, the self-proclaimed decider, reached for the unlimited dictatorial power whenever he proclaimed the national security was threatened, and he considered himself above the law where domestic affairs were concerned, even as he signed acts of Congress into law." Now, from my point of view, I like many other people, and I won't go explicit right now into all of my research into what I believe was a manufactured Holocaust on September the 11th, 2001. You can look at www.splittingthesky.net, and you can see all of the talks that I've given relative to unearthing, following the money to those who stood to benefit billions of dollars in put option treaty man just prior to 9/11, and those same people that I identified as being major beneficiaries of the 38 companies are also the key players that are bilking the U.S. Taxpayers, man, for trillions of dollars in the phony bailout scandal that's been going on in recent days.